Hello, Q&R Code. This week, we are back to a slightly more regularly scheduled programming with both Quinn and Riley, your two twin co-hosts. This is Quinn, and I will say I did quite enjoy getting to be the listener of your solo episode, Ry.
Thank you, Quinn, but you were missed. It is a very different vibe without you. I still, of course, enjoy doing it, but I was thinking about people that run a solo podcast always, and I don't know if I would want it to only be my own stream of consciousness. I think it's nice once in a while to throw that in, but I think there's a reason that by far more podcasts have multiple people. The conversational aspect is, I think, key to the medium in general, but thank you. Thanks. I knew you would listen, my friend.
I believe that you missed me. I don't know if I was widely missed because so far the feedback has been very positive. No, people just know that
they just want to uplift.
Yeah, I'm glad that people liked it, and it was just, yeah, so sweet for me to hear, to be completely surprised by what was going on, and thank you for doing that and carrying the team. I could have certainly pulled through for an episode last week, and that was our plan, but then Riley offered a solo episode, and after a little reflection, I said, why not take her up on this offer, because I knew that I could use a little bit of a recharge to my system.
We don't like to force ourselves to the point to a mentee be when one is perhaps on the precipice. It's good to just take a step back and allow yourself to not push it over the edge. So I felt like that was a good call. I feel like we can just kind of go right into a little bit of perspective for what you're going through right now, just whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah. Well, something that I can count on in a time of need and hardship or grief or, just a bit of a lower low or time of, exhaustion is my teammate, my twin. And I think that that's a unique, I don't think that it's a wholly unique experience, because I think that most people in the world have community and support. But I think what's unique about ours is that we have been so lucky to feel very tapped into the, just truly undying, unconditional, unwavering, steady support since we were so tiny little babies together. And it's something that has come so naturally to us, and I think that it's something that for some dynamics and some people, I think honestly amongst people it's a natural thing, a very natural thing to have community. But I do think we're in this era of individualism, especially in what I can really speak to is the West, America, just this, tapping into individualism. But I think that it's pretty inherent in us to seek community and a shoulder to cry on. But last week my father-in-law had a major stroke, and obviously when you have people going through that, it's a surprise. It was a complete surprise and took us off guard, and I did not expect the waves of grief that I would feel from that. And I think that hi Roger, good boy. I think, obviously being married to someone and just being like in close relationship with anyone, because I know that all of my family is feeling the grief deeply too. I think like being in a very much like one-on-one support system team, sharing a household, your person, it is impossible to not be affected by someone else's grief, and I think that that's a good thing in human nature. But I think that my feelings have had waves where there will be a moment of a day that I'm feeling like, oh wow, yeah, I'm feeling actually much better in this moment, and then there will be just dips of pretty deep sadness and just confusion and uncertainty and something that I'm used to in life is just having a bit, I don't know if I would say, I'm not going to look for the perfect words when I'm going through a moment like this, but a bit of a tendency toward depression and just mental health struggles, yet simultaneously I feel like I exist in a way that I'm also, not that I'm putting myself above anyone else, but like I can feel like literally one of the happiest people in the world. Like so often in my days I feel like
you're very joyous, I would say.
So much joy, so much peace, so much gratitude. And I think in our episode today, I'm sure it'll be emotional, spanning through all sorts of feelings, but I think today what we want to kind of focus on is just the circumstance and feelings and like coping mechanisms and just like overall building a bit of world building around a experience of grief or heartache. And something that Riley touched on in her episode last week that was really important to me was you talked about that someone in your life was saying that like, how can you even, I'm basically not allowed to or not able to experience joy when everything in the world bad is happening. I will tell you what, Riley and I, all of these things that we share about in the Q&R code in general, we are people that claim nothing other than to be constantly growing, evolving. We are not trying to create a platform that is like a follow our lead because we have a step-by-step guide of how to be the best you can be. It's more Riley and I sharing
it's
in
not
our
the Q&R code because we have a secret code, okay, you guys?
It's our personal code for what we have developed between the two of us in our life as twins, where we have this very, to us, like profound and special unbreakable bond that helps us navigate the world being our best version of ourselves that we know how in this very moment. So we're just going to be sharing from our current perspective, and we'd never ever claim to know it all. But what I do know, like deeply inside of myself, is that there is always room for joy and happiness and peace, and that doesn't mean that it can be tapped to into every second of the day, but something I'm very grateful for through this time of some serious downs, some serious heartache we won't go too deeply into the personal family details because the situation is ever evolving, but so far what we know about my father-in-law's condition is that it is a long road of healing. We're not sure the progress that will be able to be made. That being said, of course, there can be many times in these cases where a doctor or neurologist gives a, diagnosis, or they think this will never happen, this type of progress will likely never be made, and crazy things happen. So we don't know what the future holds for my father-in-law, but we know that his life is changed forever, and the rest of our lives are changed forever, so it is going to be an ongoing road of grief and just like a life change. And it's not just grief though, like there's a lot already that I've learned from this past week of some very deep pain and grieving that has been such like already a teacher for how I want to show up better in the world. And I think that people pretty commonly going through deeply difficult times feel like it's some of the most informative and important points in their life for learning and growth.
100%. It's all of the things all at once, just like the nature of life, where nothing can really be painted with just one brush stroke. And this is something that you guys know I'm personally passionate about, is the concept of disability and how that is a minority group that anyone can potentially enter at any point in their lives. And I think that something that I'm very cognizant about is trying not to speak about an event with just like such a negative connotation, because I think often when people go through these events, they then in the future do speak of, ways that their life and their perspective changed that they're grateful for. But of course, in the moment, having something so severe happen to you and to your family, it's also not something that I have the tendency to like to do, to just immediately try to push down the grief and the hard and the sad and say, something good might come of this. Like, there's lessons to be learned there, because that just feels in the moment like, okay, sure, but like I'm shattered right now and feel completely brokenhearted about this, and you don't have to rush that feeling along. It will come and go in stages, and there are moments of gratitude to be found, but in these early days there's, I would say, the bigger presence of grief and loss and change that can feel really challenging to accept and to envision a future. And that's all okay. Everyone doesn't even like make sense to take it day by day when a condition is so, it just has so many question marks. It's going to be minute by minute. I might have a heavy sob session and then feel like, oh, I actually had some really good parts of my day. And then sometimes that makes you feel guilty because, oh, look what they're going through. It's a flood of emotions, and this is why grief is just such a personal journey that I really try as hard as I can to be non-judgmental about the way it looks, because it people that are in it don't even like understand how they're feeling, and there's just not really room for judgment there. But like you said, you never know. That's the biggest thing, is talking to Braden, of course, being in the medical field, about the situation. He just said the doctor's job is to prepare everyone for a likely outcome, but there are always there's always room for unlikely scenarios, and the brain specifically is still very hard to understand, as advanced as science is, as much as we have like evolved in medicine. There are so many more unknowns than knowns there. So, you can take what the likely scenario will be and try to prepare for that, and as a family start to cope and grasp with what that future could potentially look like. But only time will tell, and that is another big reminder of a value that Quinn and I talk about a lot, which is being present and not trying to hold on to this vision of the past that is no longer, or have anxiety for a future that we just can't possibly predict, and just take the moment for what it is and do the best we can in this present moment.
I was listening to a podcast episode, and I often gravitate toward like philosophy from monks and just Buddhist philosophy and principles. That's something that I feel like I started really becoming interested in, honestly, like early middle school, and then went on to pursue in early high school my yoga teacher training. And there is so much I didn't mean to, but I feel like I did take a hiatus from those types of, like, really digging into those principles and just the learning of that type of mindset and kind of science behind the mind. But it's something that in general I have been more called to recently, is digging into more spiritual and mindset practices and philosophies. And oh my gosh, it's like there is so much information, and there are so many different ways of thinking about the world and being and the mind and coping. But something that this monk on his podcast I just listened to was talking a lot about was presence, and how basically a big philosophy in Buddhism is trying to think of your past, present, and future less solidly and more. I think a lot of people, including myself, and something that I noticed particularly a couple of years ago, was how much I was holding on to the story of my past. And those things can be informative and can be important, but it started to really occur to me that I was living in the past to such a degree that it actually was causing so much more suffering and pain than just practicing acceptance of what has happened in my life and choosing to live in the present. And it's not to say that you forget and those things don't inform you, but I do think that living so much in the past or the future is kind of there's not a lot to be gained. And that's not to say don't future plan or don't reflect and think fondly on memories or reflect on hardships that you've gone through, but I think that there's a balance there, and often I have noticed that when I am dwelling in the present, or the past or the future, it is very hard to be just like living in reality of the moment you're in. So I think there's a tendency in a time of, hardship, tragedy, change, grief, to look into the future and go, what is our life going to look like in the future? Okay, what does this mean for us in a month from now or 3 months from now or next year? How is he going to progress? Like, how are we going to live? But I have really been trying to free myself from those notions, because I don't need to look into the future, and that's actually doing, when I have been sitting in that and just worrying on the future, it's for me, no good has come from it, and it has only created like more stress and anxiety. When I'm right now, the best thing I can do for the people that are grieving around me as well as myself is to be focused on the present and reality and trying to feel grounded and centered. Something I want to talk to you guys about and show you is this was inspired by a couple of people, my twin included, because my mom, who is so thoughtful and such a, gosh, I just have so much appreciation for my loved ones. My mom gifted us these beautiful journals, myself, Riley, and one of our close friends for graduation, and we had them as our
back in high school graduation, you guys.
High school graduation for our, how people will I'm looking off to the side because I see all three of my most beautiful equine grazing in my pasture, and that is one of the many moments where it's like, how can, like, not much wrong can be existing in a moment where I just get to lay my eyes on my beautiful animals while they're, on my mihonki, while they are grazing on a beautiful pasture. Anyhow, this is how I decorated my journal. I have felt so inspired through this grieving period of time to be creative, and it's something that I've tried to really run with. This was all, I just want to show you guys my journal to inspire you, because maybe I feel like it's such a fun, crafty thing to get to decorate a journal, and my guess is most people probably have something. You probably don't have to go out and buy. None of this I went out and bought. Like, this is all stuff that I just found around my house when I was trying to just like dig deep and have fun. One of the special things I have in here is strapped in is my mom's worry doll that she passed down to me, that she's had for, I don't know, 30 or 40 years.
It's so cute. I'm just going to paint a little verbal picture for the listeners that aren't watching the video that Quinn used. A really fun sort of binder clip to hold on some different elements. There's a horse playing card. The back is a horse. There's a little charm dangling off the enclosure and a puffy sticker, worry doll, like Quinn said, that is such a fun 3D element. I think Quinn was so creative with what she used. And as I recall, you had crispy leaves clipped on the front, but I thought that could become more difficult as you're laying things open and writing and drawing, so I don't know if I see those on there anymore.
Yeah, those I wanted to use as drawing reference, and what I like about this clip, I was like, oh, something I could actually clip on that would be different and that would be easier to maintain and preserve would be like a feather, one of my chicken's feathers, or a feather I find on my walk as a more natural element. But I like the clip aspect because I can clip on like a little dried leaf or a little flower or something that I want to use for a reference for drawing.
That's a good idea.
So, yeah, it's just kind of rotating, and I'll keep my pen that Riley gifted me, my Muji pen, which I have grown to love so fondly, just strapped on here as well. But I do love this journal because it has inserts that you can like fill up and then take out and replace. So that's what we did because it had our high school graduation, notes from the people who attended our party, which I thought was very sweet. But now I said goodbye to that for now. It's elsewhere. And now I just have room for my own journaling. But something that I have really tried to lean into in this time is just I have had such an impulse to be creative, and I think that for me as an artist, it's very important to lean in when you have that desire and are tending toward the feeling of wanting to create. I think it's important to create even when you're not having that feeling, but I was noticing myself the first couple of days, especially after receiving the news. I just was having a pull, not really a pull toward my phone, but just this like coping mechanism of reaching toward my phone because I was having such big feelings that
yeah, it numbs out.
Yeah, it was a very convenient way to cope, and guess how it was making me feel? No, exactly. That's precisely right. It was making me feel horrible, and my, just even the additional elements of the eye strain, and it hurts your hand and wrist, and just feeling the kind of doom and gloom of being pulled into the phone when what I actually wanted was to be creating. But anyway, I thankfully have the tool of the brick, which I really pulled myself back into, saying, okay, I've got to change this. I am not going to go through this period of grief where I could actually be investigating my feelings and getting to know myself better, or just even not trying to grow my animals. I want to squish them so much. They're so beautiful and they are running around. It's not even just like, oh, I have to better myself in this way, but I was like, something I do know that I'm very grateful for, even in my times of, pretty dark times and depressive episodes, I am very grateful that I have the foundation from childhood of there has always been a glimmer. It's almost like the light of God with the sunshine peeking out behind the clouds. Like I've always had that, even when it's small in dark times. Like there will always be a little bit of that glistening hope where I'm like, I do have self-worth. I do want to feel good. I do want to heal, even though in depressive episodes that can feel so hard to reach for or let alone attain. But I knew like, hey, I have to show up for myself. I cannot be expecting Riley and the rest of my family and the rest of my community to show up for myself in this moment if I can't dig deep enough to be showing up for myself as well. And the support of my community is going to mean less if I cannot dig deep enough to find that I want. I want the love. I want the support. I will accept those things in. So anyway, I just, through like a couple of conversations, of course, mainly with my twin, but with others as well, just like felt the strength to be able to say, I am going to create. And so I have been really, really diving into just like no expectations in what I'm creating, but just creating. I have done some collaging. I have done a ton of writing and sketching and just stuff that I was like, it's okay. I don't need to be worried about the outcome. I don't need to be worried about the way this looks. This is just a healing thing to, like, again, as an artist, I feel like you can tap in so much to harnessing your emotion through a brush stroke or the stroke of a pen, or like, it might sound cheesy. I wonder what the point of view is from people who maybe haven't honed in on creating as much or haven't taken as many art classes or whatever, but like literally the pressure of your pen on the page and having evocative like mark making, that is such a great outlet for me that I
feel
have
like
just
anybody should know that from being a toddler and being like,
literally
I just want to scribble right now.
that is genuinely what I did to begin with. Like, at first I was not having a craving to be refined in my mark making at all. I was just like, I want to emote through my pen onto paper and get some tension out of my body. And there was one night where I had a particularly hard day and I just was reaching. I was like, you know what, I am going to reach for this. And even when I felt like, okay, like I got a couple of pages in, I just pushed myself and decided I'm gonna do more, and just made art for a few pages, wrote some crazy random things that it doesn't even really matter what I was saying in the moment. Just felt like whatever is coming to mind, I'm gonna let myself put that down on the paper. And that has been so huge for me in this time. And I'm just really grateful for all of the things in life that are tools in my toolbox that have equipped me for a moment like this. And I have so many more bulleted points that I would love to touch on about going through this time of grief, but first I want to hear what your thoughts, Rye.
Well, I am very happy listening along and thinking about different things as we go, but definitely this is something we've talked about on the podcast before, but reaffirming for me to use like a journal and these different outlets as a way to just put it down with non-judgment and whatnot. I have struggled with feeling like I want to write well when I write in my journal, or I want this watercolor to come out nice, and like have these kind of adjectives attributed to it that has prevented me from doing the, not saying doing the work, but doing the practice at all, because it's just like, oh, I don't have the time, or, you know, I don't want to actually do a nice drawing right now, so I'm just not going to do a drawing, or I don't know how to put these feelings that I'm experiencing, so I'm just not going to write it down and process in that way. And I just really want to shed that, because it is not the point of a journal, and I know that, and I don't really understand why that attachment formed for me when we did grow up really encouraged to journal, and we would have to bring our journals with us, like traveling and whatnot. And I don't feel like it was made to be like a graded space, but yeah, that's my own thing that I've put on myself that I know doesn't serve me.
Yeah, I totally understand that feeling though, and have definitely existed in that place. And the thing is, you'll never get. I won't lie. It is satisfying at this point in my life, much more satisfying to journal, draw, create than it has been in the past, because I am quote unquote better at it, because I have done it a lot more. Like, that is something I am grateful for about my job and being a tattoo artist, is that that has just grown my skills as an artist so much. So I totally know how you feel, because in the past, when I felt less honed in and like less able to be quickly satisfied by the outcome of something, that it was a lot less tempting to even start to create, because I knew like, oh, probably eventually, still with enough tries, even in times past in my life, I'll get there. But if I'm only going to spend 5 minutes and I'm not going to let it get refined, it was a lot harder to let go. But yeah, I don't exactly know what the mindset shift is that has allowed me to get here, but I have just freed myself so much from the outcome. It is such a peaceful feeling to feel like I am allowing myself to create with genuinely not an expectation of the outcome. And maybe for me, it is because so many days of the week I do create with a very serious expectation for the outcome, that I have, like, I know there will be balance where I am making art that I know the outcome matters very deeply to me, and I prepare for that. And then to have the, other days of the week where it's like, the outcome is not what this is about. This is actually just about the process and the feeling.
Well, it's also like, as you're saying that, it's reminding me that the outcome we are so like drilled in to think is the product, but that's not the only outcome from what you're doing. There's the product on paper, but there's also the outcome of what you had this whole time. That's not what you were talking about with this journaling. You were talking about the emotional processing and the release and being very present. Journaling is such an important practice in terms of a presence practice, I think, because you are just there in that moment. It's a very engaging activity when you're art making. I think that's such a great aspect of it, is that you were just there in the moment doing that thing. And yeah, these are all the outcomes, and then how you show up in your day because you took that time for yourself and whatnot. That's all the reason behind it. There's times where you're sitting down to do a piece of art that you're gonna think of all the formal elements and you want it to come out like that, and then there's, to be able to do that, like you said, you have to have all of the practice and the reps. And I think I also don't need to attach it like, oh, I have to draw if I'm going to get better at drawing, because sometimes that's not even the point, and that probably has a lot wrapped up in it from just the expectations that people have of like, why would what's the point of doing something that you're not good at? But there's actually a lot of point to that to me.
It's also so interesting how much I don't believe in the concept of like art cannot be judged and art cannot be critiqued, because I went to university for art and let me tell you what, it can be judged and it can be critiqued, but I still appreciate the sense of like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And the more artists, and everyone, you can call yourself an artist. Like, I think that that's one of, it is the belief that you are an artist. It is the belief that you are a creator. I wouldn't only call myself an artist because I get paid for making art. You can think of yourself as an artist if you are someone who loves fashion. You can think of yourself as an artist if you are someone who listens to music with a certain discerning ear. Like, that is so much in the eye of the beholder. And the more people I meet that think of themselves as artists and I see the work they're making, it is so much about how you decide to create, how you decide to think of your art, and it's not for anyone else to decide and judge what you're doing. Like, there are people that make, that's something I appreciate about like the ignorant style of tattooing. It's called like ignorant tattooing. That is the more like loose, sketchy. Maybe some people in some forms of art would have, would consider that as unrefined, or even some people would think ugly or choppy, or they don't like it and they don't resonate with it. But you can be a complete doodler that makes things that some people might think that is ugly and I don't like that, if what they're used to is more of a refined style of art. But that's just that's a personal thing, like that's, you get to decide. What are you laughing at? My bunny's fluffy tail.
They're just a little curls flopping into the frame.
Another thing is, in this time, okay, here's how I'll start this next bullet point. Robin Wall Kimmerer, I love you. I just read The Serviceberry. If you have been listening to the pod for a while, you know that we love Robin Wall Kimmerer from her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, which is one of our Q&R code required readings. She is amazing. I love learning about indigenous wisdom. It is so inspiring. And I love learning from botanists and people that are passionate about the natural world and who tune in to the natural cycles of the world, because it's just something that resonates so deeply with me. And The Serviceberry is basically also very short and fast read. If you are looking for a book with extreme impact and low effort in terms of time investment, I highly recommend The Serviceberry. Kitty cat, what's she doing over there?
Bunny's on the case.
Yes, he is. It's basically about the concept of gift economies, and one
reciprocity.
Yes. And one gift economy that she points out that I think would make this concept make sense pretty quickly for people, because it's pretty applicable and kind of all over the US at this point, is little free libraries are their own little gift economy, because you have benefited from something, you have a resource, and you choose to freely share it with the world. And it's reciprocity, where if you have wealth in some way, you choose to share it with the understanding that other people's wealth will be shared with you in a never-ending cycle of gifting. But it's also not with expectation. It's not this expectation of like, okay, I give to this person, they better give back to me. It's just this knowing that if I give, things will come. It's,
it's like what it's like in Klaus when he says, I don't remember if this is exactly the line, but the sentiment of one act of kindness always prompts another.
Facts. Like, so true. That movie is so good. So where this came in for me was, okay, so that one I had one particularly dark day in this period of time, and in one of my lowest moments where I just felt like, whew, this is one of those rock bottom feelings, I reached out to a couple of my close friends that live by me, because a lot of my closest friends and closest loved ones in the world are not a 15-minute drive away. So I called on people in my more direct community and said, can you please come over and help me do some cleaning and do some laundry this weekend? I need help. And I'm so proud of myself for, like, that was so unbelievably challenging for me. I couldn't believe how much, like, it almost was like my heart skipped a beat to ask for help in that way. And I realized, like, I do not want that. I don't want that to be my story. I don't want it to be hard to reach out to people that I know love and support me when I'm in a time of need. And if I feel that way, I just know I'm not alone in the world with anything I feel. So clearly, other people might be going through times of need and not feel like they can reach out because of this individualism that we... Bunny? A little bit of a chaotic moment throughout this episode with my animals, but we're just leaning in, people. I want to feel...
It also gives permission when you ask for help that can be done in reverse, and I think that some people really need that to know that would be like an okay thing. And of course you want your friends to know, I'm here for you as an actual friend. It's not just a good time gal that I only am interested in our relationship when it pertains to getting a drink and having a blast. I want you to be an actual friend, which to me means highs and lows and carrying each other through when you need that. That's how relationships should function in my eyes, and I think that that's been a critique of the generation raised on the internet, is that has somehow been lost in a lot of ways. You feel like your friends are people just like to have fun with instead of to be like to be there when it's real. That's when else do you need a friend the most.
Yeah. And it feels so silly to me to think of how hard that was, and that it took me genuinely feeling like this moment. I was in such this moment of desperation to be able to reach out, and I just sent the text and was like, I know, like, I even hesitated in the moment. I was going to just delete it and be like, never mind. And then I was like, I need to send this text and tell people I need to ask for the help I need, and I can be brave and ask for the help I need. And it just, it made me think, if I am having this hard of a time in this time of need, I do not, even if my friend was literally living their absolute best life, thriving, I would not mind to come over on a Saturday and help them do a couple loads of laundry. Like, genuinely would not mind to do that. Why? I just can't imagine my friends who love and care about me being unwilling to help in that way. Like, it serves both sides to ask for help, because we all know how good it feels to help. Like, that's just true. It feels good to be like, I have the power to be able to be a helping hand. It feels good to bake a loaf of sourdough and give it away to someone. Like Riley and I always talk about when we talk about sharing and the gift economy, is that directly benefits both sides. It is a positive impact on both sides to be of help and to receive help. So, anyway, that's something I did, and actually doing that as well ended up what we really ended up doing is my two little besties came over and we had a craft day, and we, shared in the emotional stuff going on, and I got to have hugs and I got to have support, and we mostly just focused on like having quality time and crafting time, and I actually ended up being inspired knowing they were coming over to do most of the cleaning that had felt kind of impossible the couple of days before, that I was just in this place of like this build up where it just felt like the action was so hard that just knowing they were coming over and I wanted to do crafts with them made me feel inspired to get most of what I needed to do done, and I just asked them each for like a pretty small task, and they still helped in that way and would have been willing to do more. I know they would, but it ended up just inspiring me to be like, okay, I've got this. So that's something I've learned, is just to genuinely ask when you need help, and also you don't have to wait till you're at rock bottom. You can ask for help before that, and if anything, that is a lesson I've learned, is I don't need to wait. Like, it can be any time in my life, and I can call upon my community that I've built, and it has also reminded me to continue to check in on people. I've had a few moments through this process where I've been a little bit in my own wallowing sorrow, where I have felt like, wow, it would feel really good if someone checked in on me again, and I'm very grateful because I have had consistency from people continuing to check in, and that is a lesson I've learned, is I want to be someone who continues to check in, because I think oftentimes when, a tragic or hard complicated event happens, we can have that first burst of like, oh, let me check in on this person, but it's a long road most of the time when we're going through hardships. So I want to be someone who continues to drop in, check in, see how I can be, of service, or just send a little love for people to know that I'm still with them, thinking about them, and not have it feel like the immediate influx and then drop off of support.
Mm-hmm. And that is a good reminder, because we're all just so caught up in our own worlds, and I totally understand and have a lot of grace for when people don't show up in that way, because you're living your own life, and it's hard to sometimes always remember to do that for other people. But I think that is a good practice that I like to incorporate, even if it's not necessarily because someone has something going on, but just when you think of someone, if you have the moment and you can remember, just sending them a text that says, hey, I was just thinking about you and I hope you're well and I'm here for you. That doesn't have to only come in the moments of tragedy, because you don't know what sort of day someone might be having, that might mean a lot. Or even if they're having a great day, it's still always awesome to feel thought of and considered. And I think that we all hold space for actually a lot more people than know it. I know for a fact that there are plenty of people that I have never hung out with in a one-on way at all, that I often think of and reflect and hope that they're doing well, and have that sentiment like extended towards them, that they would probably be very surprised and think, oh my gosh, I would think that Riley wouldn't even have a second thought for me, so it's just good to remember that on both sides, that you have space for a lot of people and also a lot of people have that for you, and it can be from unexpected places. Like my last episode talking about it with being actually strangers, where I am like, wow, you don't feel like strangers anymore, even though it's not like I can tell you many points about your bio or where you're from or all of these details, but doesn't really matter because we can care for people that we don't know.
Yeah. I think that sometimes the fear of imperfection stops us from acting, just like you were talking about with art making or journaling. And I think that for people, the fear of showing up imperfectly to support and not knowing what to say can stop them from saying anything at all. And I think, you know, that Riley and I feel very strongly about sensitivity. There's so much that's great about being sensitive. There's so much power in being sensitive. I also think in maybe a different form of the word, there is some sensitivity in our culture that I am just choosing, like, it's not my worry to have about other people, and I can show up and be my best self, and I can't worry about if other people are going to think that I didn't do it perfectly, because I know how much grace I offer to others. And even in a moment, like, sometimes I'll have a critical moment of someone and go, wow, I wish they hadn't done that way. That was, I don't like how they said that or whatever. And so quickly, I am able to go, okay, I got past my moment of annoyance or sensitivity, irritability, and they are forgiven. Not that they ever needed that type of, that's kind of a big word for it, but it's like, let that roll off your back like a duck with a drop of water. It just rolls off. And so more and more now, I'm really trying to embrace acting without fear of imperfection. And if someone, let people be responsible for their own feelings, their own circumstance, their own emotion. I think most people in going through a hard time are not going to go, wow, this person texted me and the way they worded that was not the way I 100% wanted to be shown up for. There are many different ways to cope. There are many different philosophies and points of view about life. When I have gone through an extremely hard time, I don't prefer being met with the phrase, everything happens for a reason. I remember one of the hardest times I've ever been through in life being met with that phrase, everything happens for a reason. And that just did not sit well with me. But, and it still doesn't. Like, to me, when a tragedy happens, that's not that doesn't comfort me. Being told that doesn't comfort me. But I know that the person who said that to me, they came with the intention of loving me, showing me support, comforting me, and I could look deeply into their hearts and understand, you're just doing your best. You're trying your best. I'm not going to ridicule you because you didn't show up for me with the phrasing of exactly how I wanted to be heard. Guess what? There is nothing anyone can say that is going to change my circumstance. There is nothing anyone can say. I even had a moment telling this to Riley, and I don't agree with what I said in that moment, but in a moment of struggle, told her, like, I just don't even feel like I can get support. And what I meant was, there's nothing anyone can say right now that's going to change my circumstance. There's nothing anyone, no matter how much they love me right now, no one is going to be able to say anything that is going to change the fact that I have a broken heart. Mm-hmm. It is the way it is. Like, this moment of grief is not going to be made better by a sentence, no matter how well intentioned it is. But it is comforting knowing that people are thinking of me, that people are thinking of my family and of my father-in-law, and any situation it is. The comfort is through knowing that I have a community backing me, a community supporting me, people who are seeking to share in the moment and putting their vulnerability and their hearts on the line and saying, like, I'm here for you. And I think it's so valuable to just act. I think that we can just all give ourselves grace, credit, give other people grace and credit. Like, I think that most discerning people can see when someone is trying, and that intention matters.
That's a similar sentiment from that same moment that you were referring to when we were younger and lost someone. Was, again, people saying this was just God's plan, and I remember feeling very frustrated by that, because that's not really what you want to hear, at least for me, when I don't have that belief system. And I talked about that at that time with my dad, and I remember that he said, Riley, they might not even believe that either. They just don't know what to say, and they're just trying to make you feel better. The intent is just to let you know that they care about what you're going through. And I think that that's a good reminder that we can get hung up on how someone's words feel to us, instead of that we all know how it feels to not have the words but want to, like, express a sentiment anyway. And I felt that way with just my twin last week, seeing you go through such a low, hard moment where it's like, I wish that there were the words, but there's nothing really to be said. It's just that that I care, and I'm here to listen, and you can go through whatever you need to go through, and we'll figure it out together. But you have done such a good job with this episode, going through the grief. I think that's a really hard thing to do in real time, and I'm just constantly impressed by your level of emotional intelligence and the way that you're able to process these things in real time. I think that's a skill that most people would really wish to have and might not ever achieve, and from a young age you've put effort towards that, and it's definitely paid off, and something that I felt like from the beginning of us starting a podcast would be a really great thing for more people to get to, like, see and reach, because I know how much that you have helped me feel like I have made, like, strides in that department.
Well, that's really, really tender and considerate, Rye, and my heart just explodes for you, and you know that. And we all have gifts that are worth sharing with the world, and we can do that in so many different ways. And I know that for me, the grief can really what's it called? Multiply, or intensify. Exacerbate sounds too much like masturbate.
Oh. Okay.
It can just, like, multiply the feelings of good for me. And that
I now see that exacerbate was not an appropriate application for that sentence, and I will retract it.
I think that that's something I'm letting myself lean into without any shame. I know that there might be, like, who knows? I don't know. I'm really trying to actually put less onto other people, what other people might think, and that it's really not serving me or anyone else to assume what other people might be thinking. But in moments of grief, maybe it's unexpected to see someone going through grief and simultaneously feeling a lot of joy and happiness and comfort like I am having. It's just, there are waves. It's not even day by day. It is truly moment by moment, where I will, at one point of the day, be reaching a very low low, absolutely having a breakdown, feel like, how can I do this? How do I move on? And truly, a few minutes later, the sun comes out from behind the clouds, and I am in the moment in the pasture with my animals, and my phone is inside, and I feel genuinely met by just glory, peace, calm, joy, like uncontainable joy, where I just feel like, just profoundly met in a moment of like, I feel so much peace right now. I could never ask for more. Like, I feel so lucky, because even in my moments of just like such darkness, I feel so incredibly grateful, because there is never a day that goes by in my life where I feel only grief, only sadness, only sorrow, only pity. I never have a day that I don't feel joy. And that's such an important thing for me to lean into, and what I choose to think of as one of my superpowers, because it is not worth dwelling in those in the dark for longer than you have to. Like, I do not believe in amplifying my suffering for the sake of being more palatable to other people or it making more sense. I am going to lean into what I am feeling in any given moment, and when joy comes, I am going to acknowledge it and feel it and meet it with gratitude, and I don't have to question it. Like, I get the privilege of having those profound moments, and if anything, it's something I am continuing to seek more of, and I get it so much with creating, with being outside, and with being with my animals, and with moving my body. Like, those are things that I know are my safe spaces, my oasis, it doesn't even feel like coping mechanisms, because I think that, I don't know, maybe has an implication of like trying to outsource what you're going through, but to me those are just part of who I am that like allow me just so much peace and presence. There are the things in my life that I can tap into to be truly present, and that is where I feel the most peace. So I hope that that can just, be food for thought for people in life in general. And, my journal and just writing. I love my writing of gratitude lists. I practice that in many ways. I often am outside talking to myself saying thank you to the universe for whatever which thing I say and feel. And another thing that I had felt this temptation to take off work. Like, I wanted to be home. I wanted to be maybe there was a little pull of wanting to dwell in a feeling of darkness and just wanting to slouch around, I guess. But I went into work multiple, my scheduled days so far this week, and I'm so grateful for my job and the place that I work and my clients that support my work, because I got to feel like such presence and just like dig into my art in those moments and get to sustain myself by making a living through doing something that I love and care about. So yeah, there's ups and downs happening right now, but I'm very, very grateful that I get to have all the ups that I do through this time. And thank you to my family. Thank you to my support systems and anyone that feels willing to offer support in different ways. I know that my husband would sure love to be, being checked on. Just thinking of his family, and if that for you looks like prayer or well wishes, I know any of that is greatly appreciated. And maybe with no pressure whatsoever, we'll just link the GoFundMe, because his family is definitely feeling financial stress through this, and if it feels like a way that you can show up and support, then that's great. And if not, truly no pressure and no judgment. But I figure that's one of these gift economy moments where if you feel like you have something extra to spare, any dollar counts for people that are, struggling with finances. I think most of us can relate to moments of feeling like, wow, I am in need of help financially. And if you have the ability to give, that will certainly be repaid to you in the future. I believe that. So
yeah, it's horrible to think that medical emergencies can put people into such precarious situations in this life, but I think that crowdfunding is a pretty beautiful way that we've all figured out to show up for each other. As always, thank you guys for listening. I know that it can sound like a little disingenuous in a parasocial relationship to say something like this, but truly, Quinn and I do feel that we are wishing the best for all of you. And even though this platform largely shares our personal stories, I think that the whole foundation for us to have a podcast was because we really envision a community that can be built on this shared mentality and values that we have around gratitude, grace, joy, living life to its full potential. And we really appreciate you choosing to spend time with us and listening to us week after week. We're glad to have you back, Quinn. Thank you for your vulnerability, and we will talk to you next week.
Goodbye.